This may look more like a pasta dish than it does a chili dish, but believe me, this is a chili and it is delicious. This is my Cincinnati-style chili and it's served here three-way. And if you're from the Cincinnati area, like my friend Bree, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, you'll find out coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is one of mine, but I've kind of adopted it, co-opted it, whatever, from the city of Cincinnati. If you haven't heard, Cincinnati has a specific type of chili that is generally served over pasta, which is why I have my big pasta pot over here. Now there are 5 ways, from what I understand, of eating Cincinnati chili. I am going to go over those at the end when we get to that point, but for now, let's just get a little background about why Cincinnati chili is different. It is not like a standard chili where you brown the meat and throw things in after you've browned it. There should be, from what I understand, no oil, no browning. Things get dumped in there, typically tomato paste and a lot of water. I am not doing the water part of it, but I am still sticking as closely as I can to the original. And this is kind of like got some odd ingredients, you might think. It's got some cinnamon, some clove. Why? Well, Greek and Macedonian immigrants in the Cincinnati area started making this at a diner, I believe it was, a restaurant of some sort, and served it over pasta, and it just became a traditional thing. And now there are chili places all over Cincinnati, again, from what I understand. I've not been there. I do plan on someday going to visit my pal Bree and having her show me around, but as of yet, that has not happened. So meanwhile, I can make my own Cincinnati-style chili at home, and I'm calling it Cincinnati-style chili so that nobody comes for me from Cincinnati and says, no, that's not correct. I did, as I said, a lot of research about this, and there are some questionable ingredients here that may not be in a standard, so I called it Cincinnati style, just so that I wasn't trying to claim that this was the actual thing. But let us go over the ingredients. I have here a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Here I have a medium onion that has been diced finely, just above a mince. And if you're not sure about the different types of preparations for onions, I did do a tutorial a little while back. I'll leave a card up here and leave a link in the description on how to prepare onions. I had done like a back to basics series for a little bit, preparing peppers, herbs, spice blends, onions, mushrooms, what have you. So I will leave the onion one down below in case you're not sure of how to prepare a finely chopped onion. I have here 1 pound of 96% lean ground beef, and you don't have to use ground beef. You could use ground chicken breast, ground turkey breast, whatever your preference is. I just decided to go for the ground beef because that is honestly the only thing that's going to give me any bites or points here. I am on the Healthi Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan. And of all the ingredients, this is the only one that's going to give us any bites or points. I have here a 1/4 cup of tomato paste, which is about half of the 6-ounce can. You can just scoop it out of half of the can. You don't have to measure it if you don't feel like it. I have a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. I cannot say that my jaw has been giving me a lot of trouble. You'd think I'd stop using it since I can't pronounce it anymore, but And I have 2 teaspoons or 2 cloves of minced garlic, 1 tablespoon of vinegar. Now I suggest in the recipe that you use apple cider vinegar. I actually did not have any, so I went with white wine vinegar. You just want a kind of milder vinegar. You don't want a harsh like white vinegar. You don't want like a balsamic vinegar or something that's going to give it an extra flavor that doesn't quite belong. Okay, for our spice blend, we have 1 tablespoon of chili powder. I'm going to jump over this one for now because this is the controversial ingredient that I was talking about. A teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of cinnamon, and that is standard in Cincinnati chili. 1/4 teaspoon of clove, which is sometimes seen, sometimes not, but it gives a nice like smoky flavor to it. 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper and a teaspoon of kosher salt. If you're using table salt, you want to use half as much, so it would be about a 1/2 teaspoon of table salt. Now this little ingredient here is 1.5 teaspoons of cocoa powder. It's not really all that unusual to find cocoa powder in certain savory dishes, like if you've ever had a Mexican mole, there's a lot of chocolate in that. But this is a 1.5 teaspoons of just unsweetened cocoa powder. And some say chocolate or cocoa powder does belong, some say it does not. I added it because I think it gives it a nice depth of flavor that really enhances the dish. And that is all there is to the ingredients. Now, this is going to be a pretty quick preparation because basically we're just going to dump everything into the pot, except for the tomato paste. We are going to brown that a little bit first. It's a little departure from the way it's typically done. Typically, everything's just thrown in there and cooked. I'm going to just get a little caramelization on the tomato paste, which will give it a depth of flavor that will really enhance everything, as well as get rid of any tinny flavor that might be lingering in the tomato paste. So let me shuffle a few things around and we will get started. Okay, so I am putting my pot over medium-high heat, and I am going to add in the tomato paste as it warms up. You can wait until it gets hot if you want, but I'm just going to let it sit here for a moment. So this will just take a minute or two to get a little color, and then we will move on. Okay, it's only been about a minute. You can see that on the pan we're starting to get some brown there, and that is what we are looking for. Once everything's in there, we're going to scrape up a lot of that's on the bottom. If you feel uncomfortable just putting this in a dry pan, you could spray it, but typically that's not how this is done, so I am not doing it that way. Now we're just going to pretty much dump everything in there. With the ground meat, you want to pretty much mash it up in here. You could use the spatula. You could use a potato masher. I know there are people who use a potato masher because typically you're not getting chunks in the chili, in Cincinnati-style chili. So I'm going to mash that up fairly well before I add in the other ingredients. And as I said, you can use chicken, you can use turkey if you prefer. This is a very low bite meat, 96%. So I don't mind splurging a little bit on it, but you feel free to use what you want to use. Now we're going to add everything in, basically just a dump and go type of deal. Crushed tomatoes, the onion, chili powder, Worcestershire sauce, whatever you want to call it, the garlic, the vinegar, the cocoa, the cumin, cinnamon, salt, pepper, and clove. Pretty easy dish. Now we're just going to mix this all together and try not to splash things all over the place as I am currently doing. Now typically from what I've read, the chili is made with tomato paste and a lot of water, like 3 cups of water in some of the recipes I read, and then allowed to cook off some of that water and condense. As you can see, I am not using any water. I'm using the crushed tomatoes instead because I like the enhanced tomato flavor there that just tomato paste I don't feel would give me. Now I'm going to turn this down to medium. Let this simmer here for about 30 minutes until it thickens up a bit, and then it'll be ready to serve over our pasta. And then about 15-20 minutes before this is done, I'm going to start my pasta water and get that cooking so that they are ready at the same time. But I hope you can see the meat is just in little bits. It's not chunks. It's just basically little flecks of meat in there. And that, from what I understand, and Brie, you can tell me if I am incorrect, is typical of Cincinnati chili. So I'm going to give this a half an hour to thicken up, and I'll be back. Okay, so it has been half an hour, and you can see that my chili has thickened up rather nicely. If you wanted it a little thicker, you could let it go a little bit longer, but this looks perfect to me, so I'm going to turn that off. And I have my pasta over here. Typically, it's served over spaghetti, and in particular, I believe, from what I've read, it's thin spaghetti, and that is actually what I do have here. But you don't have to serve it with spaghetti or any pasta. You could serve it on a hot dog, like as a chili dog. You could just eat it on its own. I don't know if there's officially a name for that, but I just call it the one way because they have up to 5 ways of eating this. So I consider one way just the chili in a bowl. A 2-way is the chili over the pasta. A 3-way is the chili over the pasta with some cheese on top. I'm going to use a 1/4 cup of fat-free cheddar. That way it's not going to add any bites or points because I'm using the Great Value Walmart brand of fat-free cheese. I managed to find some and stocked up, but just a 1/4 cup is not going to add any bites. Now a 4-way is the chili on the pasta with the cheese and then minced onions. I know Jennifer Lynn just cringed at that idea, but the 5-way is the chili on the pasta with the cheese, the onions, and then some warmed small red kidney beans. From what I read, you use the small ones, but I'm assuming a regular kidney bean would be fine. But you do not put them in the chili. They are warmed separately in a pot right out of the can, drained, but right out of the can. And you warm them on the stove top and then put those on top, which sounds great to me because I love beans. Paul's not as big of a fan of beans, but I love beans, so that sounds great to me. So now that you know the different ways to serve it, what are the bites or points going to be? Or the calories and macros if you're following those. Now, as I said, I use a ground beef, 96% lean, and that makes this 3 bites or 3 of the old blue points. If you use ground chicken breast or ground turkey breast, it would bring it to 0. So that is a great option, especially if you're going to use regular pasta and you need to bring those bites and points down elsewhere. But the way I wrote up the recipe was using the ground beef, so that is what the calories and macros are going to be for. So if you're following calories, the calories for 1/4 of this serves 4, would be 243 calories. And if you're following macros, the fat would be 4.9 grams, the carbs would be 20.6 grams, the fiber would be 5.3 grams, and the protein would be 27.7 grams. And again, that's as I made it. As I always say, put everything into the recipe builder of whatever app you are using so you get accurate counts based on what you are using. But I'm definitely getting the hints of cinnamon and clove. The clove adds a nice smokiness, as I said, just like last week in my barbecue sauce. I added a little bit of clove because it does give some of that kind of smoky flavor that you want in a barbecue or in a chili. And if you haven't seen the barbecue sauce, I'll card it up here and list it down in the description box. So I'm going to wait for the pasta to finish cooking, then I will serve it up 3-way and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so there you have it, the Cincinnati-style chili 3-way served over the pasta with the cheese on top. Again, if you wanted a 4-way, you would add some minced onion, and a 5-way would add the small red kidney beans on top of everything else. But it's a delicious meal that I think you're really going to enjoy. Don't let the idea that it's not an official chili or that it's served over pasta distract you. It is really very tasty, and I can't wait to get to Cincinnati someday to taste the real thing. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. Share any of my videos if you think there's someone out there who would be interested in this content, and hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Also, comment down below, have you ever tried actual Cincinnati chili? I know you have, Bree, but what about the rest of you? Have you even heard of it? And are you going to try it? Are you going to try it over pasta? And which way do you want it? 2-way, 3-way, 4-way, 5-way? Or maybe just the 1-way in a bowl. So I am going to go and enjoy this delicious dinner, and I hope you will be doing the same soon. So until next time, bye.